Europe in 1944 was like a continent engulfed in darkness. 5 years of war had reshaped the face of the land, millions dead, cities destroyed, entire nations under the Nazi grip. In the West, France had been under German occupation since 1940. In the East, the Soviet armies were fiercely fighting to break the German iron grip. In the South, Italy had fallen, but German forces continued to fight fiercely. It seemed as if the whole world was caught in the jaws of a war with no end. Yet, in Britain, men were planning something different, something that could change the fate of humanity. In small offices in southern London, inside rooms full of maps and aerial photos, one of the greatest military plans in history was being drawn: the Normandy invasion. Its code name was simple: D-Day. Behind that name hid one of the greatest gambles ever taken in warfare. The goal: to open a new front in Western Europe and break Hitler's grip on the continent. The Allies, led by the United States, Britain, and Canada, knew that the path to victory ran across the beaches of France. They also knew that failure would mean the end of hope. Hitler, however, was not unaware of what his enemies were planning. He had built a steel and concrete wall along the French coast, known as the Atlantic Wall. Thousands of guns, mines, and obstacles awaited any army that dared approach. The task seemed impossible. Yet, for the Allies, failure was not an option. In the winter of 1943, Allied leaders began crafting the plan that would decide the fate of the war. At the helm was General Dwight D. Eisenhower, known for his calm, caution, and poise under pressure. Beside him was Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, ambitious and experienced. With them were hundreds of officers and analysts from all over the free world. The challenge seemed simple, but was profoundly complex. How could hundreds of thousands of soldiers and equipment be transported across the sea and landed on a fortified shore, under enemy fire, in just a few hours? The answer required science, imagination, and unparalleled courage. The operation was divided into phases: preliminary air and naval bombardment to destroy German defenses, paratrooper drops behind enemy lines to cut roads and communication, main amphibious landings on 5 designated beaches in Normandy. Each beach had a code name: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. These names would later be written in blood. But even with the most precise plans, one danger remained uncontrollable. The enemy knew an attack was coming, but not when or where. This led to one of the greatest military deceptions in history: Operation Fortitude. British and French intelligence used fake armies, dummy tanks, wooden planes, and false radio transmissions to convince the Germans that the real landing would be at Calais. The deception worked brilliantly. German commanders remained convinced Normandy was a diversion, while the Allies finalized preparations for the largest seaborne operation in history. On June 6, thousands of ships would cross the English Channel, but before Eisenhower could give the order, they had to face an enemy they could not defeat with weapons: the weather. On June 5, 1944, the sky over England was thick with clouds, rain pounding the windows of Allied High Command in Portsmouth. On the table before General Eisenhower lay maps covered with arrows, points, and weather notes. Everything was ready. Troops, ships, planes, supplies, all waiting for a single word: go. Yet the sea was furious. Winds exceeded 30 knots, and waves could easily overturn landing craft. Eisenhower looked at his officers silently, then at British meteorologist James Stagg, who said decisively, "There will be a brief window tomorrow at dawn." A moment of silence. Then Eisenhower gave the phrase that changed history. "Okay, let's go." Within hours, the greatest military force ever assembled would move. Over 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft, 156,000 soldiers from the US, Britain, Canada, and Free France, all heading for the Normandy beaches. Cold waves struck the landing craft. Men inside remained silent, holding their rifles, reading final letters from loved ones. None knew if they would survive to reach land. At 3 a.m., June 6, 1944, American paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions flew through the darkness over France. Their mission? Infiltrate behind enemy lines to cut roads and bridges, preventing German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. Meanwhile, thousands of ships advanced toward Normandy. At dawn, the heaviest naval bombardment in modern history began. Over 700 warships shelled German fortifications along the coast. The ground shook, the sky burned, smoke filled the horizon. At 6:30 a.m., the landing at Omaha Beach began, the deadliest of all 5 beaches. American forces faced the wall of fire, German MG-42 machine guns tearing through the ranks. Many landing craft were destroyed before reaching shore, and those who disembarked faced no cover, trapped between the sea and bullets. One officer shouted, "Forward is the only way. Stay here and you die." Meanwhile, at Utah Beach, navigation errors placed troops in less fortified areas, reducing casualties slightly. In Juneau and Gold, Canadian and British forces advanced methodically, yard by yard. By noon, the French coast had become a massive battlefield. Thousands dead, burning ships, and destroyed equipment. Yet one thing was achieved. The Allies were now on European soil. While artillery roared on the beaches, French resistance fighters carried out bold sabotage operations, destroying railways and bridges, cutting German communications. These small but crucial acts allowed the Allies to hold their ground and prevented German forces from mounting an effective counterattack. In Berlin, Field Marshal Rommel and Hitler struggled to comprehend the scale of the attack. They believed the real assault would be at Calais, as the Allies intended. Reinforcements were delayed by more than 16 hours, enough time for the Allies to secure the beaches. In that moment, the balance of the war shifted. The Allies now had a foothold in Western Europe. A surviving American soldier later wrote, "We knew we might not survive, But we also knew we were writing a new dawn for the world. After the initial landings, the Allies faced a new challenge, advancing inland through towns, streets, and fortified positions. At Omaha, soldiers moved toward Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer under sniper and artillery fire. At Gold Beach, the British advanced toward Biville, using tanks to break fortifications. The battle was no longer just on the sands, but on every street, field, and house. Coordination was difficult. Units faced attacks from multiple directions. Soldiers later wrote, "Every street was a maze of death, yet we had to move forward, step by step." Slowly, the Allies linked the beaches, securing a path toward Paris. French resistance played a decisive role in disrupting German supply lines, destroying bridges, and cutting communications. Meanwhile, Allied deception operations continued. Dummy tanks, fake installations, and false signals misled German command, causing them to send reinforcements to the wrong places, saving thousands of lives on the beaches. After a week, the Allies began breaking German defenses in Normandy. Sherman tanks moved through streets, demolishing fortifications, allowing infantry to advance. Villages such as Carentan witnessed fierce street battles lasting over 24 hours. Soldiers used grenades, rifles, and even set fire to buildings to control the streets. By mid-June, most beachhead defenses had fallen, allowing a faster push inland. By late July 1944, with the Allies advancing through Normandy, liberating France became only a matter of time. Paris was officially freed on August 25, 1944. Citizens poured into streets, waving flags and welcoming Allied soldiers as heroes. For Hitler, the fall of France marked the beginning of the end. General Rommel wrote, "We have lost control of the West. Only Germany itself remains to defend." Heavy losses. Allies, approximately 425,000 killed or wounded during the Normandy campaign. Germany, over 400,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or captured. These numbers were not just statistics. Each represented a life, a family, and dreams unrealized. Strategic impact. Opened a Western front, relieving pressure on Soviet forces in the East. Marked the beginning of Germany's military decline, reducing Hitler's maneuvering options. Human impact. French civilians paid dearly, villages destroyed, millions displaced, yet their resilience became a symbol of hope. Amid the ruins, communities rebuilt from ashes, determined to reclaim their freedom and identity. The liberation of France was not just a military victory, it was a triumph of the human spirit. Ordinary people, once trapped under occupation, became witnesses and participants in one of history's greatest turning points. The Normandy campaign, with all its sacrifice and suffering, laid the foundation for the Allied advance into Western Europe and the eventual end of World War II in Europe.